Welcome to Zoe Stories. One pill, one night, and my life changed forever. The city lights outside my apartment blurred through the rain-streaked window, casting long streaks of neon across my living room. I sat on the edge of my couch, hands trembling slightly, staring at the small bottle on the coffee table. A single pill rested inside, glinting under the harsh glow of the lamp. It seemed insignificant, almost harmless, but I knew it wasn't. Not tonight. Tonight could change everything. My name is Alex. Most people see me as just another 20-something office worker, stuck in the monotony of emails, deadlines, and weekend plans that never really excite me. But no one knows the secret that's been gnawing at me for years. The secret that made my nights feel alive in ways my days never could. I was a cross-dresser. Not out of some teenage whim or fleeting curiosity. This was me. My escape. My way to feel whole. It wasn't easy. The apartment was small, barely enough room for a kitchen and a living space, let alone a secret wardrobe. Yet I had built a sanctuary within these walls, a tiny corner of silk dresses, high heels stacked like trophies, and shelves lined with makeup that I applied with reverent precision. Each brush stroke, each swipe of lipstick was like stepping into a version of myself I could never show the world. And then there was Isabella, my girlfriend. She was sharp, confident, and dangerous in the most intoxicating way. She didn't know everything. How could she? I had spent years constructing the perfect balance, presenting the world with Alex, the reliable, mundane guy. But Isabella had this way of looking at me, sometimes jokingly, sometimes seriously, that made my heart race. She wasn't aware of the nights I spent in heels and dresses, whispering to myself in the mirror, feeling both embarrassed and exhilarated. Isabella was part of my life that I loved dearly, but she was also a risk. Our relationship was built on trust, affection, and the thrill of each other's quirks. But secrets have a weight, and mine was growing heavier every day. What would happen if she ever discovered this hidden part of me? Would she laugh, judge, or simply walk away? I didn't have the courage to find out yet. Tonight, though, everything felt different. I had been scrolling through an obscure online forum when I stumbled upon something promising. A pill. Just one. It promised to make the experience of cross-dressing more vivid, more intense. The emotions, the sensations, the confidence, it all could be heightened. I stared at it now, heart hammering, mind screaming caution. One pill, one night, and then freedom or disaster. I remembered the first time I had truly experimented with my hidden self. It was in the cramped bathroom of my old apartment, hands shaking as I carefully applied eyeliner for the first time. I had felt exposed, ridiculous, and strangely alive all at once. That thrill had never left me. It was addictive, like stepping out of my skin and into a version of myself that no one else could touch. Tonight, I was tempted to take it further. To push boundaries I had never dared cross before. My gaze flicked to the clock. Isabella was out with her friends, probably laughing, probably oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. The apartment was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional drip of water from the leaky faucet. It was a perfect setting, dangerously perfect, for what I was about to do. I took a deep breath and ran my fingers over the pill. It was smaller than I imagined, yet heavier in significance than any object I had ever held. With a whisper to myself, half fear, half excitement, I placed it on my tongue and swallowed. The metallic taste lingered, bitter and immediate, and I felt a flicker of anticipation. What was about to happen? Would I feel different instantly, or would it creep up slowly until there was no turning back? As the minutes ticked by, I moved toward my wardrobe, hands grazing the soft fabrics as if seeking reassurance. I picked out a dark, elegant dress, a favorite that had always made me feel unstoppable. My heart raced as I slipped into it, the fabric clinging to me in ways that were thrilling and terrifying at once. My reflection caught me mid-motion, and I froze.
Who was I looking at?
Alex? Or someone else entirely? The makeup came next, each brushstroke a ritual. I traced my eyeliner carefully, contouring my cheekbones until they looked sharp and delicate simultaneously. I applied a soft shade of lipstick, my lips tingling as they transformed under the colors. Each action brought a rush of sensations, heightened now by the strange warmth spreading through me. My body felt different, lighter, more attuned, almost electric. Then came the shoes.
Heels.
High, black, impossibly elegant. I stepped into them slowly, testing balance and poise. The mirror reflected not just my image, but my potential, a version of myself that I had longed to meet. And now, thanks to that one tiny pill, it was as if the version in the mirror had stepped out into reality. Time blurred. Each sound in the apartment seemed sharper. The creak of floorboards, the whisper of the wind against the window, my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I felt exposed and invincible all at once, teetering on the edge of discovery and revelation. And somewhere deep inside, a question gnawed at me. How far was I willing to go tonight? How much of myself was I ready to reveal, not to the world, but to myself? The night stretched ahead, full of possibilities and peril. One pill, one night, and maybe, just maybe, the line between Alex and her would blur forever. The warm glow of the lamp reflected off the polished surface of the coffee table, highlighting the pill bottle that had started this storm. My heart still pounded, a rhythmic echo of the daring step I had taken. The first wave of effects was subtle, a tingling warmth running through my limbs, a flutter in my chest that made the world feel sharper, more vivid. Every sound seemed amplified, the distant hum of the city, the soft click of my heels against the wooden floor, even the whisper of the fabric as I adjusted the dress. I took a slow, deliberate breath and let my hands glide over my reflection in the mirror. The person staring back at me was Alex, but not the Alex the world knew. Tonight, there was a softness, a curve, a shimmer in my eyes that hadn't been there before. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once. My fingers traced my jawline, following the subtle contours that the makeup had highlighted, and I felt a surge of exhilaration. The apartment felt alive with tension. Every shadow seemed to move. Every corner held the potential of discovery. What if Isabella came back early? What if one of my neighbors saw me through the partially open window? My pulse raced as I adjusted the dress once more, smoothing the fabric over my thighs. The sensation was electric, like stepping into a new skin that was both foreign and familiar. I glanced at the wardrobe, eyes lingering on the collection of wigs I had carefully arranged. Tonight, I chose the longest one, a chestnut brown cascade that fell over my shoulders like silk. Pulling it over my head, I adjusted it until it framed my face perfectly, softening my features and accentuating the transformation. With the wig in place, I hardly recognized myself. It was intoxicating. The makeup, however, was the real magic. I applied a touch more eyeliner, accentuating the almond shape of my eyes. Mascara lengthened each lash, and I could barely contain a gasp as my own reflection stared back at me. Feminine, confident, and yet so fragile. Each stroke of blush brought warmth to my cheeks, and each application of lipstick made me feel bold, alive, daring. The thrill of cross-dressing had always been a secret pleasure, but now, heightened by the mysterious pill, it was overwhelming. My mind wandered to Isabella. She had always been curious about my little quirks, the way I sometimes lingered over my wardrobe, or the subtle hints I dropped when I talked about fashion or colors. But she had never suspected the extent of it, not the heels, not the makeup, not the intensity of what I truly felt. My chest tightened at the thought of being caught, yet a part of me craved that thrill, that risk. With trembling hands, I slipped into my high heels, feeling the familiar instability, the heightened awareness of every step. The first tentative step across the apartment made me catch my breath. Balance was precarious, yet empowering. My reflection moved with me, hips swaying slightly, shoulders back, chest lifted, a performance and a revelation all at once. I paused in front of the mirror, studying myself in detail. The pill was working. My senses were sharper, my awareness heightened, and even my emotions seemed amplified. Every nerve ending hummed with anticipation. Every glance at my reflection sparked a mixture of excitement and fear. I was vulnerable, exposed, yet strangely unstoppable. A sudden noise, a car door slamming outside, made me jump, heart hammering. The thrill of being potentially discovered was intoxicating. Each shadow now seemed a threat, each sound a challenge. I moved carefully toward the kitchen, pretending to sip water, though my mind was racing 1,000 miles an hour. The apartment was empty, silent, and yet alive with possibility. I knew this night was a turning point. The pill, the dress, the heels, they were more than objects. They were catalysts, pushing me to confront desires I had long buried, to embrace a version of myself that I had always feared would be rejected. And yet, with that thrill came fear. The fear of losing control, the fear of being caught, the fear that this night would change everything permanently. As I stood there, one hand on the counter, one on my hip, I felt a shiver run down my spine. Tonight was not just about cross-dressing. It was about transformation, body, mind, and soul. The apartment, once a safe haven, now felt like a stage, and I was the star of a performance that teetered on the edge of danger. The thrill was addictive. I took another glance at the mirror, tracing the curve of my waist, the tilt of my chin, the shimmer of the wig. I whispered to myself, almost as a warning, "This is it, Alex. One night, one chance. Don't let it slip." Outside, the city pulsed with life, oblivious to the storm inside. And I, standing in my heels, dressed, made up, and trembling, felt a surge of power and vulnerability unlike anything I had ever experienced. One pill, one night, one chance to step fully into a life I had only ever dared to imagine. And somehow I knew there was no turning back. The minutes stretched like hours, each tick of the clock echoing in my ears, amplifying the tension that buzzed through my veins. The pill's effects were intensifying, a heady cocktail of heightened sensation and daring boldness. I could feel every inch of fabric hugging my body, every contour, every curve, as if the dress itself had come alive to remind me that I was no longer just Alex. I was something else, a version of me that had always existed in the shadows, now stepping into the light. I moved toward the window, peering out through the blinds. The street below was empty, save for the occasional taxi splashing through puddles. No one could see me, not yet, but the fear lingered, a shadow at the edges of my exhilaration. Each sound made me jump, the creak of the radiator, the soft hum of the fridge, the distant bark of a dog. My body was tense, a tightrope walker balancing on heightened senses, each step measured, each movement deliberate. I caught my reflection again, and this time I paused, studying every detail. The wig framed my face perfectly, cascading over my shoulders like silk. The makeup had softened my features and accentuated my eyes, turning me into someone I barely recognized, yet longed to be. My hands trembled slightly as I smoothed the dress over my thighs. I felt exposed, fragile, and at the same time, intoxicatingly powerful. My thoughts drifted to Isabella. What would she think if she saw me like this? The idea sent a shiver down my spine. I imagined her reaction. Surprise, curiosity, maybe a hint of judgment, but also fascination. Part of me longed for that validation, to have someone else see this hidden side of me and accept it. Yet fear clamped my chest, a cold reminder that secrets had a price. What if she laughed, or worse, walked away? I paced the apartment, testing the balance of the heels. The high arches forced me to focus, each step deliberate, grounding me in the moment. But it also reminded me of my vulnerability. One misstep could ruin everything. One small accident could expose me. The thrill of it made my heart race, my skin flush, and my mind spin with anticipation. Then, I heard it, the faintest sound of footsteps from outside the door. My body froze, every nerve screaming. Could it be Isabella? No, she wasn't supposed to be back yet. My pulse skyrocketed as I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. The doorknob rattled slightly, and I felt my stomach twist into knots. Someone was there. Someone could see me like this. My hands flew to my face, adjusting the wig, reapplying a tiny touch of lipstick with trembling fingers. I whispered to myself, "Stay calm. Act normal. Don't panic." But my voice sounded fragile even in my own ears. The apartment felt smaller, every shadow more menacing, every sound a potential threat. As the tension mounted, I found myself drawn to the mirror again. My reflection stared back, and for a moment, I forgot about the outside world entirely. There I was, transformed, empowered, and yet terrified. I could feel the pill coursing through my veins, amplifying every emotion, every heartbeat, every tiny thrill and fear. I was on edge, teetering between exhilaration and panic, pleasure and dread. The reality of my secret life pressed down on me. Years of hiding, of sneaking around in dresses and heels, of whispering to myself in empty rooms, it all led to this night. And now, the stakes were higher than ever. One small misstep, one unexpected visitor, and everything could unravel. Yet, despite the fear, a part of me craved it. The risk, the exposure, the raw, electric sensation of being caught in a moment that was entirely my own. I decided to push further. If I was going to embrace this night, I would do it fully. I took out a pair of gloves, delicate and black, sliding them over my hands. They completed the outfit, the illusion, and added a layer of sophistication that made me feel untouchable. My movements became more deliberate, more graceful, each step a statement, each gesture a declaration of the person I was becoming. And then I realized something. This wasn't just about wearing a dress or heels or makeup. It was about control, about power, about the freedom to be someone entirely different, yet wholly myself. The pill had opened a door, but stepping through it required courage I wasn't sure I had. And still, the thrill was undeniable, the temptation irresistible. My mind raced with fantasies and fears. I imagined Isabella walking in, her eyes widening in surprise, her expression unreadable. Would she see me and understand, or would she recoil in shock? Would she laugh, tease, confront, or simply leave me standing there, exposed and trembling? The uncertainty was both terrifying and intoxicating. Minutes ticked by, and the apartment seemed to shrink around me. Shadows danced along the walls, echoing my own jittery movements. I tried to steady my breathing, to calm the storm inside me, but it was futile. Every nerve ending buzzed with anticipation, every thought split between caution and daring. The night was mine, but it was also a minefield, each step potentially disastrous, each sound a harbinger of revelation. And yet, despite everything, I felt alive. More alive than I had ever felt in my mundane daytime existence. This was the thrill I craved, the tension I needed. The risk, the secrecy, the transformation, it all converged in this single moment, a potent mixture of fear and desire. One pill, one night, one chance to step into a life that was simultaneously mine and entirely new. The apartment felt like it had shrunk into a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Every corner was a potential stage, every mirror a witness to my secret. I took a tentative step toward the living room, the heels clicking softly against the floor. Each movement made my heart race, every sway of my hips a reminder of how different and exposed I felt. I paused near the bookshelf, running my fingers along the spines of old novels, pretending to be absorbed in them, yet acutely aware of how vulnerable I looked. The dress clung to my body perfectly, and the wig framed my face with an almost cruel precision. I felt beautiful, yes, but fragile in a way that made my pulse spike. The pill coursing through me amplified everything. The softness of the fabric, the warmth in my limbs, the rush of adrenaline coursing through every vein. My reflection caught my eye again. I had to study myself, to understand the transformation that was taking place. The mascara made my eyes look larger, more expressive. The lipstick painted my lips a daring shade of red, and the blush added a softness to my cheeks that belied the pounding of my heart. My hands flew over the dress, smoothing the wrinkles, adjusting the fit. I was meticulous, obsessive even, but it was necessary. Every detail mattered tonight. The thrill wasn't just in the clothes. It was in the act itself, the act of becoming someone else entirely, yet feeling wholly, undeniably me. I could sense the changes inside, subtle but undeniable. My posture shifted naturally, my gestures softening, my movements becoming more fluid. I experimented with a slow turn in front of the mirror, letting the dress flare just enough to see the curves of my body in motion. The sight took my breath away. And then came the realization. I wasn't alone. Not physically, but the possibility of being discovered made the space feel crowded. My mind raced, imagining Isabella stepping through the door, or worse, a neighbor spotting me through the rain-smeared windows. I froze in the middle of the room, hands pressed to my chest, holding my breath as if stillness could make the threat disappear. Every creak, every distant sound seemed amplified, each one a test of my courage. I decided to push further, to embrace the daring that the pill had unlocked. Moving toward my makeup table, I experimented with bolder touches, adding shimmer to my eyelids, darkening the eyeliner to give a smoky, mysterious effect. I wanted this version of me to be undeniable, to radiate confidence even in the shadow of danger. Every application was electric, heightening my awareness of my own reflection, of my own transformation. The heels became a challenge now. I practiced walking slowly, deliberately, testing the balance, feeling the muscles in my legs tighten with the effort. Each step was a small victory, a testament to the confidence I was building even as my nerves screamed warnings. My reflection moved with me, almost like a separate entity, teasing and daring me simultaneously. Then, the sound came, a soft knock at the door. My heart leapt into my throat. I froze, every muscle tensed, trying to appear calm and natural even as panic clawed at me from the inside. Who could it be? The timing was impossible. Isabella wouldn't be back yet. And yet, the knock was deliberate, insistent. My mind raced. Should I hide, answer, or pretend to be ordinary Alex? I chose hesitation. Every second of indecision stretched like an eternity. The pill seemed to sharpen my senses even further. I could hear the faint shuffle of shoes on the landing outside, the distant murmur of a voice I couldn't quite recognize. My heart hammered, my palms slick with sweat, and yet I couldn't tear my eyes from the mirror. I was a moth to the flame, drawn to the reflection that whispered both fear and desire. In a burst of recklessness, I straightened my posture, squared my shoulders, and practiced a smile that was meant to be casual, charming, innocent. I imagined opening the door, facing whatever waited beyond, and somehow holding onto the persona I had built with painstaking care. The thrill was almost unbearable, a mix of fear and exhilaration that left me dizzy. The apartment seemed to pulse around me, every shadow alive, every reflection questioning my sanity and daring me forward. I felt exposed and invincible simultaneously, the pill amplifying the sensations, the adrenaline, the vulnerability. The risk was intoxicating. I wanted to be caught, yet I feared it more than anything. Finally, I sank into the couch, letting the heels rest while my hands trembled slightly over my lap. I closed my eyes and let the sensations wash over me, the dress against my skin, the wig brushing my shoulders, the makeup perfecting an illusion that was becoming reality. My mind raced with possibilities, with fantasies, with fears. One pill, one night, and I was dancing on the knife edge of discovery and desire. And deep inside, a whisper of anticipation grew louder. This night would change me. It wasn't just about cross-dressing anymore. It was about testing limits, embracing fears, and stepping fully into a version of myself that the world had never seen. The thrill, the anxiety, the sheer impossibility of it all made me shiver with a mixture of dread and delight. Tonight, nothing would be the same again. The knock at the door had rattled me more than I wanted to admit. My heart pounded like a drum, echoing in my ears as I crouched slightly behind the couch, trying to make myself smaller, invisible. The pill's effects made every nerve ending tingle with awareness. I could feel the slightest vibration of the doorknob, the faint scrape of shoes outside. My palms were sweaty, my legs jittery, and yet my mind was alive in ways it had never been before. I debated my options. Should I answer? Should I stay hidden? The rational part of me, the part that lived in the daylight as Alex, screamed to wait, to act normal, to do anything to avoid exposure. But the transformed part, the one the pill had awakened, the one in heels, makeup, and a flowing dress, throbbed with exhilaration at the very idea of risk. My reflection in the mirror seemed to smirk at me, daring me to act. I crept toward the door, the soft clicking of my heels a betraying whisper against the floor. Every step felt amplified, every shadow exaggerated. The apartment felt smaller, every corner closing in like a predator circling its prey. My hand hovered over the doorknob. The knock came again, more insistent this time.
Someone was out there.
Someone could see me like this. A surge of panic and thrill mingled in my chest. I was trembling, my breath shallow, my body on high alert. I could imagine Isabella walking in at this very moment, catching me mid-transformation. Would she laugh, scold, question, or simply stare in silence? My mind raced with scenarios, each one more terrifying and more thrilling than the last. I glanced at the mirror one more time. The reflection staring back at me was almost unrecognizable. Alex, yes, but enhanced, elevated, empowered. The pill had not only heightened my senses, but amplified my confidence. I was beautiful, delicate, daring, and yet so fragile. I ran my fingers over my lips, over the curve of my cheeks, feeling the texture of the makeup and the warmth of the blush. Each detail felt electric, alive, real. The knocking stopped. Silence settled in, thick and suffocating. My pulse still raced, my body tense and alert. I realized how delicate this balance was, the thrill of being caught, the fear of exposure, the intoxicating sensation of transformation. I was caught between two worlds, the mundane life of Alex and this heightened, forbidden, exhilarating version of myself. Suddenly, a shadow appeared at the peephole. My stomach lurched.
Who was it?
I couldn't make out the face, only the outline of someone standing just outside. My mind scrambled. Neighbors? A delivery person? Or something worse? I pressed myself against the wall, every muscle tight, my breath shallow. The reflection in the mirror seemed to mock me, daring me to face the danger. I made a decision. If this was going to be a night of transformation, I couldn't hide forever. I had to embrace the thrill, even as fear gnawed at my gut. I straightened my posture, lifted my chin, and adjusted the wig. My hands smoothed the dress one last time, and I walked toward the door, each step measured, graceful, deliberate. The moment my hand touched the doorknob, the shadow disappeared. Relief washed over me, but only briefly. The adrenaline that had been coursing through me didn't subside. It transformed into a strange, almost addictive high. I realized that the fear, the risk, the possibility of exposure, it was part of the allure. It made the transformation feel real, urgent, alive. I turned back to the mirror, unable to resist. The reflection was mesmerizing, long hair cascading over shoulders, delicate hands gloved in black, the dress clinging perfectly to every curve. I swayed slightly, testing the heels again, letting the thrill of balance, danger, and beauty mingle into a heady cocktail that made me dizzy with excitement. And then the phone rang. Sharp, insistent, slicing through the tension like a knife. I jumped, nearly tipping over in my heels. The number flashing on the screen wasn't familiar, but my instincts screamed at me. It could be Isabella. It could be someone else. My hands shook as I picked up the receiver, my voice trembling. Hello? A deep voice spoke on the other end, calm, but laced with curiosity. Alex? Is that you? I just wanted to check in. My heart skipped a beat. How did they know I was here? Did they suspect? My mind raced as I tried to respond, my words faltering under the weight of fear and exhilaration. The call ended abruptly, leaving me shaking, my reflection in the mirror more potent than ever, a mirror of both vulnerability and power. I sank to the couch again, letting the adrenaline wash over me. My body felt alive, every nerve firing, every sensation magnified. The dress, the heels, the makeup, it wasn't just clothing anymore. It was armor, it was wings, it was a lens through which I could see a version of myself I had only dreamed of. And yet, the shadows lurking outside reminded me that this night was a tightrope walk, a delicate balance between desire and disaster. The pill's effects surged again, washing through me in waves. I felt electric, untouchable, fragile, bold, all at once. Every sensation was heightened. The smoothness of the wig against my neck, the tight hug of the dress, the way my heels forced me to walk with careful elegance. My reflection seemed alive, almost breathing, urging me to push further, to embrace the danger, to surrender to the thrill. And deep inside, a question gnawed at me, relentless and unyielding. How far was I willing to go tonight? How much of myself was I ready to reveal? Not to the world, but to the person in the mirror, to Isabella, to anyone who might stumble upon this forbidden version of me. Tonight was no longer just about cross-dressing. It was about transformation, about identity, about risk, about embracing a version of myself that had always existed in shadow. One pill, one night, and perhaps one moment that could change everything. The apartment had transformed into a world of its own. Shadows stretched and twisted across the walls, each flicker of light making the space feel alive, almost sentient. I moved slowly, deliberately, testing every inch of the room in my heels, letting the dress sway around me as if it had a life of its own. But tonight, the thrill wasn't just in the movement. It was in the unexpected, in the unknown. A sudden buzz from my laptop caught my attention. I hadn't expected anyone to message me, yet a notification flashed. "Are you ready for tonight?" The sender was anonymous, and the words sent a chill down my spine. My pulse quickened, the pill amplifying the tension until it felt like my heart might leap out of my chest. My mind raced. Who could know? Was it a friend playing a prank, or someone who had discovered my secret life online? I approached the screen cautiously, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The reflection in the darkened screen mirrored my image, chestnut wig cascading over shoulders, soft blush warming my cheeks, lips painted daringly. I looked at myself and suddenly realized how far I had gone tonight. The thrill of cross-dressing had escalated beyond desire. It had become an obsession, a dangerous game I was daring fate to witness. The knock came again, louder, more forceful than before. My heart leapt, and I stumbled slightly in my heels, catching myself on the edge of the couch. Whoever it was, they didn't seem willing to wait. Anxiety clawed at me, yet the pill's warmth and heightened awareness made my body respond differently. My posture straightened, my confidence surged, and I felt an almost intoxicating courage. I crept toward the door, every step calculated. Peering through the peephole, I saw a silhouette I didn't recognize. Panic surged, but so did exhilaration. My reflection caught in the nearby mirror, showing a version of me that was poised, elegant, and dangerously alluring. I realized then that the transformation was no longer just physical, it had seeped into my psyche. Alex was dissolving, and in his place, someone bold, fragile, and electrifying had emerged. Before I could react further, my phone vibrated again. A new message appeared. "You look perfect, but can you handle what's coming?" Goosebumps ran over my skin, the pill making every sensation vivid. I felt exposed, thrillingly vulnerable, and simultaneously unstoppable. My eyes flicked to the mirror again, and for the first time, I saw someone else in the reflection. Not Alex, not even the playful figure from earlier, but a woman poised, tense, trembling, and alive. I stumbled into the living room, the sound of my heels echoing in the empty space. The dress clung tighter now, and I felt every movement, every sway amplified. I had to focus, had to control the rising panic. Yet the thrill was irresistible. I felt my body responding in ways I had never imagined, a shiver running down my spine at each shadow, a flush on my cheeks at the imagined gaze of someone discovering me, a heartbeat racing faster with every step. And then it happened. The electricity surged. A noise, a muffled laugh from outside the door, almost teasing, almost mocking, sent my mind into overdrive. Someone was out there, someone watching, and I could feel it in the marrow of my bones. My reflections seemed to tremble along with me. I pressed my hands to the mirror, tracing the outline of my face, feeling the warmth of the blush, the softness of the lips, the reality of the transformation I had achieved. I knew I couldn't stay hidden forever. The thrill of danger had become irresistible. I stepped closer to the door, hand poised over the knob, heart hammering. The pill's effect made every sound and movement surreal, every sensation heightened. My reflection in the mirror was alive, daring me, teasing me. I was caught between terror and exhilaration, fear and longing, fragility and power. Suddenly, the doorknob rattled violently. My heart stopped. I froze, every muscle tense, every nerve screaming. Then, a deep, familiar voice called through the door. "Alex, is that really you?" I gasped, stepping back, the heels clicking sharply against the floor. The voice was Isabella's, but how? I wasn't expecting her for another hour. Panic and excitement collided in my chest. My reflection stared back, wide-eyed, lips parted in a silent scream, hair cascading perfectly over my shoulders. I had been caught, perhaps not entirely, perhaps partially, but the thrill of discovery surged through me like wildfire. The room felt suspended in time. Every shadow, every reflection, every heartbeat screamed, tonight, nothing would be the same. The pill, the dress, the heels, the makeup, it had all led to this point, and I was powerless, exposed, yet utterly alive. One pill, one night, one transformation that had spiraled into a moment of suspense and revelation that I couldn't have anticipated. I sank slightly to the floor, clutching the edges of my dress, trying to steady my racing thoughts. My reflection loomed above me, a perfect image of fear, beauty, and thrill intertwined. And as I stared into my own eyes, I realized something profound. This night had changed me. Not just Alex, not just the cross-dressing, but something deeper, something irreversible. The journey had only begun. The door remained closed, but the weight of Isabella's voice lingered like a storm threatening to break. My heart hammered in my chest, each beat amplified by the pill that still coursed through my veins. Every sound, every shadow, every breath seemed magnified. I was Alex, but also not Alex, somewhere between who I had been and the person I had become. I backed away slowly, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor, and sank to the edge of the couch. My fingers trembled as they smoothed the fabric of the dress over my legs, an almost desperate attempt to hold onto control. My reflection in the mirror seemed to pulse with energy, echoing my own fear and exhilaration. The pill had made everything feel sharper, faster, more urgent, and now, with Isabella's unexpected presence looming, the thrill and dread intertwined in a potent mixture. The knocking came again, louder this time, more insistent. Isabella's voice called out, "Alex, I know you're in there. Open up." My stomach twisted. How could she know? Had the messages been a warning? Or had fate simply aligned to expose me in this moment? Every instinct screamed to run, hide, change back, yet the version of me in the heels and dress refused to retreat. I forced myself to rise, staggering slightly in the high heels. Each step toward the door felt like walking a tightrope over a chasm of vulnerability and desire. My hands were slick with sweat, my palms shaking as I gripped the doorknob. I took a deep, trembling breath, willing courage into my trembling limbs. Tonight wasn't just about cross-dressing, it was about claiming a piece of myself I had long denied. The door opened slowly. Isabella stood there, eyes wide, a mix of curiosity, shock, and something I couldn't quite read. The sight of her frozen in the doorway made my pulse spike, my legs feel like jelly. My reflection in the nearby mirror captured it all, the sway of my hips, the tilt of my chin, the soft, dangerous power that the pill had unlocked. I was exposed, revealed, Yet the exhilaration coursing through me was intoxicating. She took a tentative step forward, and I realized with a jolt that the distance between us was small, yet filled with tension thicker than the walls of the apartment. Every detail mattered. The tilt of her head, the whisper of the dress as I shifted, the way my fingers clutched at the edges of my gloves. The transformation wasn't just physical. It had seeped into the way I carried myself, the way I breathed, the way I faced her. Isabella's eyes scanned me, lingering on the curves of my body, the makeup, the heels, and finally settling on my face. I could see the curiosity wrestling with surprise. I could almost hear the unspoken question, "Is this really Alex?" And in that silence, that split second of vulnerability, the room held its breath. The knocking at the door behind her, a second visitor, pulled me from the frozen tableau. I turned slightly, heart pounding, only to see a shadow slipping past the doorframe. My mind raced. Who else had seen me? Had someone been watching all along? The thrill, sharp and dangerous, surged through me. This was no longer a private transformation. It had become a spectacle, a test of courage and identity. I stepped forward, heels clicking with deliberate confidence, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. "Isabella, it's me," I whispered, voice quivering. The words seemed fragile, yet powerful, a confession wrapped in fear and desire. She didn't move, didn't speak, but the flicker of understanding in her eyes ignited a spark of hope and dread in equal measure. Suddenly, the second visitor revealed themselves, a figure I hadn't anticipated. The door behind Isabella opened wider, and a shadowy silhouette emerged, silhouetted by the dim light of the hallway. My stomach churned as my mind raced. Could I manage both reactions? Could I maintain control of the situation while my secret hung precariously in the balance? The room felt suspended in time. Every heartbeat echoed in my ears. The pill had amplified my awareness, making every glance, every movement, every breath sharp and vivid. I could feel the energy of transformation, the thrill, the fear, the exposure, coalescing into a heady mix that made me dizzy with anticipation. Isabella took another step closer. I held my ground, hips swaying subtly, shoulders back, chin lifted. The reflection in the mirror mocked me and cheered me simultaneously. I was powerful and vulnerable, fragile and bold, all at once. And as my eyes met hers, I realized something profound. This wasn't just a night of transformation. It was a confrontation with the very essence of who I was, the version of myself I had kept hidden, and the version I could no longer deny. The second figure moved closer, and suddenly the apartment felt suffocating. I was surrounded, exposed, yet the thrill coursed through me like wildfire. My pulse raced, my breath quickened, and I felt the full, electrifying effect of the pill's surge through my veins. Every fiber of my being was alive, every sense heightened, every emotion raw and untamed. And in that charged silence, with Isabella close and the second figure looming, I understood the truth. This night would mark a turning point. Nothing would ever be the same. The transformation, the thrill, the fear, the exposure, it all converged in this one moment of suspense, desire, and revelation. And the question lingered, impossible to ignore: could I survive this night, maintain my secret, and embrace the person I had become? The silence in the room was deafening. Isabella stood frozen, eyes wide, while the second figure's shadow loomed closer, each step deliberate, echoing in the apartment like a warning. My pulse raced uncontrollably, every nerve on fire. The pill amplified everything: the warmth in my skin, the thrum of my heartbeat, the subtle sway of the dress hugging my body. Every detail of my transformation was now on display, undeniable, unmissable. I tried to speak, but my voice faltered. I didn't expect you." The words barely escaped my lips, trembling, fragile. Isabella's gaze softened slightly, curiosity blending with disbelief. The second figure, however, didn't speak. Instead, they moved closer, each step heavy and purposeful, forcing me further into the corner of the room. Panic surged, and yet, Somewhere deep inside, a spark of defiance lit up. The pill had awakened a part of me that was audacious, unrestrained, daring to confront the impossible. I straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin, and tried to meet the second figure's gaze. My reflection in the mirror mirrored the tension, a perfect fusion of fear, defiance, and a strange, electrifying allure. Suddenly, the second figure reached out, brushing against the edge of my wig accidentally, or perhaps deliberately. My body jolted, heart hammering. I felt exposed in a way I had never imagined. My hands flew up instinctively, adjusting the wig and smoothing the dress. Every movement was amplified, every sensation exaggerated. I was hyper-aware of every inch of skin, every thread of fabric, every whisper of breath. Isabella stepped closer, her voice calm but layered with emotion. "Alex, I can see you've changed tonight. But what are you hiding from me?" The words cut through the tension like a blade. I felt a flush rise to my cheeks, not from embarrassment alone, but from the pill's effect on my heightened senses. Every sound, every gaze, every heartbeat was magnified. The second figure shifted slightly, revealing more of their identity under the dim light. It was someone I hadn't expected, an acquaintance from work who had accidentally discovered my online posts. My stomach lurched. How much had they seen? How much had they told? Every rational thought screamed at me to flee, to hide, to revert, yet my transformed self held me in place. The dress, the heels, the makeup, it was no longer a costume. It had become my armor, my declaration, my challenge. Fear and thrill collided in my chest. I was cornered, yet alive in a way that was intoxicating. The pill coursing through me amplified my senses to a point where I could feel every subtle movement of the two people in front of me, every shift in their weight, every unspoken intention. I was hyper-aware of my vulnerability, and yet it thrilled me. Isabella's eyes softened, and for a moment, I thought I saw understanding, or perhaps acceptance. "Alex, you don't have to hide anymore," she whispered, her voice a mix of curiosity and warmth. My pulse raced faster. The words were comforting, yet they carried weight. Could I truly reveal this side of myself? Could I embrace the transformation fully in front of them? The second figure, however, had other intentions. A sudden movement, a step closer, a hand reaching out, made my stomach drop. I backed up instinctively, heels clicking sharply against the floor. My reflection in the mirror caught every moment. The panic, the thrill, the swaying of the dress, the trembling hands. The transformation wasn't just physical, it had become emotional, psychological, a full immersion into a persona that demanded both courage and recklessness. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. I'm still me," I whispered, more to myself than to anyone else. "Just different." The pill made my voice sound softer, more melodic, more feminine than it naturally was. The effect was subtle, but undeniable. I was Alex, yet not Alex. The person in the dress and heels had emerged fully, undeniable, and alive. The second figure's approach slowed, hesitation creeping into their movements. Perhaps they were reconsidering, perhaps intrigued by the audacity and vulnerability in front of them. Every second felt stretched, magnified by the heightened senses that the pill had unleashed. My reflection in the mirror seemed almost to grin at me, daring me to maintain composure, daring me to own this moment of exposure. Then, without warning, the apartment's lights flickered. Shadows danced along the walls, exaggerating every movement, every curve, every tremor. My pulse leapt. The pill amplified my perception to the point where even the smallest flicker of light sent shivers down my spine. Isabella's hand moved toward mine, tentative yet steady, a silent reassurance. My body responded instinctively, trembling at both fear and connection. I realized then that this night had become more than just a transformation. It had become a confrontation with fear, with desire, with identity, with secrecy. One pill, one night, one confrontation had spiraled into a high-stakes drama that blurred the lines between reality and fantasy. Every heartbeat, every glance, Every sensation was magnified. I was alive, fully, dangerously, and irrevocably. And then, a sound from outside the apartment, a faint whisper, almost a warning, reminded me that the stakes were higher than I had realized. I was exposed, vulnerable, yet defiant. The thrill, the fear, the transformation, it all converged in this one charged moment, a prelude to something even more dramatic. Tonight would not end quietly.
The room seemed to close in on me.
The shadows danced, the flickering lights accentuating every detail of the dress, the heels, the trembling of my hands. Isabella's gaze remained fixed, curious yet cautious, while the second figure lingered silently, every movement deliberate, almost predatory. My heart raced uncontrollably, each beat amplified by the pills surging through me. Suddenly, a sharp sound, a door creaking open in the hallway, made me jump. My pulse spiked as I realized someone else might be approaching. Panic clawed at my chest. I had been careful, meticulous, and yet here I was, exposed in heels and a dress, with my secret teetering on the edge of discovery. My reflection in the mirror seemed to stare back at me accusingly, daring me to keep my composure. Isabella stepped closer, voice soft but insistent. "Alex, you need to be honest with me. All of this, what does it mean?" Her eyes searched mine, a mix of concern and fascination. I swallowed hard, my lips parting slightly, trying to articulate a truth that had been buried under layers of fear and desire. The pill made my voice tremble with a melodic lilt, soft and almost foreign to my own ears. Before I could respond, the second figure moved suddenly. A hand reached for the dress, not threateningly, but with curiosity that made my skin prickle. The contact was electric, sending a shiver through me, the sensation amplified by every nerve ending on high alert. I stepped back, nearly tipping over in my heels, clinging to the edge of the couch for balance. The reflection in the mirror captured every emotion: fear, thrill, vulnerability, and an undeniable aura of confidence that the pill had coaxed out. The lights flickered again, plunging the room into semi-darkness. I could barely see, yet every sound, every shadow, every movement was sharper than ever. The apartment had become a theater of tension, with me at the center, transformed and exposed. Isabella's voice broke through the silence, softer now. "Alex, you don't have to hide anymore. Show me who you really are." I felt a strange courage rising within me. The pill had stripped away hesitation, leaving raw audacity in its place. I straightened in the heels, adjusting the dress with deliberate care, running fingers through the wig. My reflection seemed almost alive, urging me forward. I was Alex, yes, but also more than Alex. Vulnerable, yes, but daring, defiant, electric. The second figure tilted their head, curiosity mixed with surprise. "I didn't know," they said quietly, voice laced with intrigue rather than judgment. The room seemed to hold its breath. I realized then that the thrill of exposure, the danger of being discovered, had transformed into an intoxicating power. I was no longer hiding. I was presenting myself, daring the world to react. Then, the door behind them creaked once more. My stomach dropped. Another person? Another potential witness? The stakes escalated to a level that made my heart pound so violently it felt like it would burst. I staggered slightly, the heels making balance precarious, the dress clinging tightly to every curve. Every reflection, every shadow, every sound heightened the tension until it was almost unbearable. Isabella moved closer, placing a hand lightly on my arm. The contact sent a jolt through me, mixing fear with a thrilling sense of connection. Her gaze softened, reassuring yet probing. "Alex, it's okay. I just want to understand. Are you willing to trust me?" The words pierced through the fog of adrenaline and panic, grounding me just enough to breathe, to think, to act. I took a deep, shuddering breath, my reflection staring back with wide, shimmering eyes. I trust you," I whispered, voice trembling yet sincere. The pill made the words melodic, almost hypnotic, and I felt the raw vulnerability of the admission sink into the room, touching both Isabella and the second figure. For a moment, everything froze. The lights, the shadows, the reflections, the figures, they all seemed suspended in time. Then, the second figure stepped back, a hint of a smile crossing their face, as if acknowledging my courage. The tension in the room remained thick, but a new dynamic had emerged, curiosity replacing judgment, intrigue replacing hostility. And yet, just as relief threatened to settle in a sudden, sharp sound, a knock at the apartment entrance made me spin. My heart leapt into my throat. Another unexpected visitor? The stakes had risen again, more intense than ever. My reflection in the mirror seemed almost to shiver, mirroring my own anticipation and dread. One pill, one night, one transformation, and now one more twist threatening to topple the delicate balance I had fought to maintain. I realized then that the night wasn't over. The thrill, the danger, the exposure, it was only escalating. My body buzzed with tension and excitement, every nerve alive, every heartbeat amplified. I was no longer just cross-dressing in secret. I was performing, daring, surviving, and discovering a side of myself I had never known. And in that moment, I understood something crucial. Tonight, my life had changed forever. Not because anyone else had seen me, not because I had been exposed, but because I had embraced the transformation, the thrill, and the fear. One pill, one night, one moment of courage, and everything would be different from now on. The knock at the door was insistent, sharp, and impossible to ignore. My chest tightened. Each beat of my heart echoed in my ears, amplified by the pill still coursing through my veins. I stood frozen for a moment, the heels forcing me into a delicate balance, the dress swaying softly around my legs. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me, wide-eyed, lips parted in a silent gasp. Isabella's hand rested lightly on my arm, grounding me. Her gaze was steady, calm, but something unspoken lingered in her eyes, a mixture of trust, curiosity, and the faintest hint of apprehension. The second figure stepped back slightly, creating a fragile perimeter of space, their attention focused on the door. My mind raced. Who could it be now? Another friend? A neighbor? Or someone who had stumbled into the secret world I had created tonight? I took a deep breath, feeling the pill's warmth ripple through me. It was a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration, making every nerve fire with heightened awareness. My reflections seemed almost alive, whispering to me, "Face it. Own it. This is who you are now." The words, though imagined, stirred courage in me I didn't know I had. The doorknob rattled. The sound reverberated through the apartment like a drumbeat, demanding attention, forcing action. I stepped closer, feeling the weight of the dress, the unyielding height of the heels, and the delicate wig brushing my shoulders. The transformation had become a part of me, inseparable from the fear and thrill surging through my body. "Alex," Isabella's voice was soft but urgent. "You don't have to hide. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together." Her words grounded me, yet my mind was a storm of possibilities. The second figure tilted their head, watching the approaching threat with silent calculation. I realized then that the night had become a delicate dance, each step measured, each movement scrutinized, each reflection a silent witness. I reached for the door, hand trembling as I turned the knob. The apartment seemed to hold its breath. Slowly, cautiously, I opened it. The hallway light spilled in, and a familiar figure emerged, our neighbor, Mr. Carter, holding a package and looking bewildered at the sight before him. His eyes flicked over the heels, the dress, the makeup, and then landed on Isabella and the other figure. Confusion, surprise, and perhaps judgment flickered across his face. For a moment, the apartment was silent, tension thick enough to choke on. My pulse thundered in my ears. The pill had made every heartbeat feel like an alarm, every breath a warning. I stood tall, forcing myself into a posture of confidence, letting the transformation I had embraced carry me forward. This wasn't just a dress or heels, it was armor, identity, and defiance all wrapped into one. Isabella stepped closer, placing her hand gently on mine. "Mr. Carter," she said, calm and measured, "Alex has something important to show. Please understand." Her voice held authority, and for a fleeting moment, I felt a surge of protection and intimacy. I was exposed, yes, but I wasn't alone. The neighbor blinked, his confusion giving way to hesitation. He shuffled the package nervously, finally retreating with a murmur, leaving the room once again to the trio of us. My body shivered, not from fear, but from the adrenaline, the exhilaration of surviving yet another near exposure. My reflection in the mirror caught every nuance, the curve of my lips, the tilt of my head, the sway of the dress. I had survived, and yet the night wasn't over. I sank to the couch slightly, adjusting the dress and wig, feeling the pill's effects ripple through me. The second figure approached, curiosity and fascination evident in their gaze. "I didn't expect this," they murmured. "You're incredible." Their words were soft, almost reverent, and I realized that my transformation had transcended mere clothing. It had become a statement, a presence, a force that could captivate, challenge, and disarm anyone who saw it. Then, the mirror caught my attention, a subtle detail that nearly escaped me. The reflection wasn't just Alex in heels and a dress. It was a symbol of duality, of risk and reward, fear and thrill, vulnerability and power. My hand rested lightly on the glass, fingertips tracing the image of the transformed me. In that moment, I understood something profound. This night had irrevocably changed me. One pill, one night, one sequence of choices had pushed me to confront my deepest fears and embrace a part of myself I had hidden for too long. Isabella's gaze met mine, soft and unwavering. "Alex, you're ready," she whispered. The words were both comforting and challenging, pushing me toward acceptance, toward confrontation, toward fully owning the transformation that had started as a secret thrill and had evolved into a revelation of identity. The room held its breath again as I straightened, adjusted my wig, and looked into the mirror. The reflection stared back, bold, alive, and irreversibly transformed. Every shiver, every step, every near miss had led to this moment, a perfect, dangerous equilibrium between fear and exhilaration, exposure and control. The night wasn't over, but I had survived, learned, and stepped closer to who I truly was. And just as a tentative sense of calm began to settle over me, a faint sound, a whisper, a shuffle, a presence at the window, reminded me that the suspense wasn't done. The night was far from over, and the transformation was still unfolding. The apartment felt charged, every shadow alive, every reflection in the mirror shimmering with tension. My heart raced in my chest like a drumbeat, amplified by the lingering effects of the pill. I was fully transformed now, heels clicking on the hardwood, dress swaying, makeup flawless, wig perfectly in place, but the thrill of exposure had reached its peak. Every sound, every movement, every breath felt magnified, and the fear of discovery coiled tightly around me. Isabella's hand rested lightly on mine, grounding me. Her gaze was steady, unwavering, filled with curiosity and a hint of admiration. The second figure lingered, eyes scanning every detail, every nuance, as though the room itself were a test. I was hyper-aware of my reflection, the mirrored image showing not just Alex, but someone entirely new, fragile yet bold, terrified yet audacious, vulnerable yet captivating. A sudden noise from the window made me jump, a soft tapping, almost like someone testing the glass. My pulse leapt, adrenaline surging through me. The pill heightened every sensation, the rustle of the dress, the subtle sway of my wig, the rapid thrum of my heartbeat. I turned toward the sound, my reflection trembling alongside me. My heels clicked sharply as I approached the window, peering through the blinds. Nothing. Just the empty street bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. Yet the sense of being watched lingered, a shadowy weight pressing against my nerves. I shivered. Not entirely from fear, but from the combination of adrenaline, exposure, and exhilaration. The night had escalated far beyond anything I had imagined, each moment intensifying the thrill and danger of my transformation. Isabella stepped closer, whispering in my ear, "Alex, you're stronger than you know. Tonight, you faced fear and came out alive." Her words sent a shiver down my spine, and I realized that the pill had not just heightened my senses, it had heightened my emotions, my courage, my awareness of the duality within me. I was exposed, yet emboldened, vulnerable, yet unstoppable. Suddenly, the second figure moved closer, their hand lightly brushing mine, a deliberate, almost teasing gesture. My breath caught. The sensation was electric, making my pulse spike. Every inch of me, every nerve ending, was alive with sensation, amplified by the heightened state the pill had induced. I realized then that the transformation wasn't just physical, it had become emotional, psychological, an immersion into a persona that demanded courage, boldness, and self-acceptance. Then the apartment door creaked once more. My heart leapt into my throat. Another visitor? Another threat? The tension coiled tighter, squeezing my chest. I staggered slightly into heels, clutching the edge of the couch for support. The reflection in the mirror caught the motion, lips parted, eyes wide, body poised between fear and thrill. I was caught in a moment of perfect suspense, every heartbeat echoing in my ears. The door opened slowly, and light spilled into the apartment. My breath caught. Standing there was someone I had never expected, Isabella's brother, James. His eyes widened as they took in the sight. The heels, the dress, the makeup, the transformation fully realized. His expression was a mixture of shock, disbelief, and an unspoken challenge. My stomach twisted. How much had he seen? How much had he understood? I froze, every nerve alight with tension. The reflection in the mirror seemed almost to tremble with me, capturing every subtle shiver, every rapid breath, every twitch of muscle. The pill's effects magnified everything, making each second stretch into eternity. I realized with a jolt that this was the ultimate test, not just of my secret, but of my courage, my identity, and the persona I had embraced. James stepped closer, voice low but incredulous. "Alex, what's going on here?" His gaze flicked between Isabella and me, and I felt the weight of exposure settle like a stone in my chest. I wanted to speak, to explain, to deny, but the transformation had changed me. The boldness, the defiance, the exhilaration of this new persona surged through me. I straightened, adjusting the dress, running a hand through my wig, and looked directly at him. This is who I am," I whispered, voice trembling yet melodic. The words carried weight, amplified by the pill, resonating with both vulnerability and audacity. My reflection stared back, confident, unyielding, impossible to ignore. For a moment, silence reigned. The room held its breath. Then, James' expression shifted, from shock to intrigue, from disbelief to a dangerous curiosity. He took a step closer, and I realized with a mixture of fear and thrill that the night's suspense had reached its peak. Every heartbeat, every glance, every sound was electric, charged with the thrill of exposure and the fear of what was to come. And just as I felt a trembling sense of precarious control, the lights flickered violently, plunging the apartment into semi-darkness. Shadows stretched and twisted across the walls, reflections in the mirror multiplying, distorting. My pulse raced uncontrollably. The thrill, the fear, the exhilaration, it all collided into a perfect storm. I was fully exposed, utterly transformed, and on the brink of revelation that could change everything. One pill, one night, one transformation, and my life had spiraled into a suspenseful, electrifying unknown. And then, a whisper from the darkness. "I've been watching, and now, so has everyone else." My reflection shivered. The heels clicked sharply as I took a step back. Isabella's hand tightened around mine. James leaned closer, expression unreadable. The apartment felt suspended in a moment where fear, desire, and transformation converged, and the future was uncertain, explosive, and completely out of my control. The apartment felt suspended in time, every shadow sharper, every sound magnified. My heels clicked faintly on the floor as I adjusted the dress one last time, the fabric clinging to my curves. My reflection in the mirror stared back, wide-eyed and trembling, but also fearless. The pill had heightened every sense, every heartbeat, every nerve, making me acutely aware of the danger and thrill of the moment. Isabella's hand rested lightly on my arm, grounding me. Her gaze, warm yet questioning, searched my face as if trying to pierce the layers of fear, excitement, and transformation I had accumulated tonight. "Alex," she whispered, voice soft but steady, "whatever happens, we'll figure it out together." The words were comforting, but the intensity of the room, the presence of James, and the unknown beyond the door made my chest tighten. James' eyes held a mix of shock, intrigue, and something darker, curiosity bordering on judgment. He took a slow step forward, the floorboards creaking under his weight. Every step felt amplified, echoing through the apartment like a drumbeat marking the climax of this night. I held my ground, heels digging into the floor, dress swaying with a delicate rhythm, wig perfectly in place. I was exposed, yet I refused to shrink. A sudden sound from the hallway, a soft murmur, a shuffle, made my stomach clench. Another person? Another witness? I swallowed hard, pulse racing uncontrollably. The reflection in the mirror caught every detail, the tilt of my chin, the rapid flutter of my lashes, the trembling of my hands. I realized with a jolt that this night was no longer just about cross-dressing. It had become a test of courage, identity, and survival. Isabella stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "Alex, show me who you are," she urged, voice a soft anchor in the storm of fear and adrenaline. I took a deep breath, letting the pill's effects flow through me, heightening my awareness, sharpening my courage. My reflection seemed to pulse with energy, as if urging me to embrace the transformation fully, to face the danger, and to claim the persona I had built in secrecy. James' gaze remained fixed on me, analyzing, weighing, judging. His expression was unreadable, a storm of emotions hidden beneath a mask of curiosity. Every instinct screamed caution, yet a thrilling surge of defiance pulsed through me. The night had stripped away hesitation, leaving raw courage, vulnerability, and desire intertwined in a perfect storm. Then, without warning, a shadow moved outside the window, a fleeting silhouette, almost imperceptible, yet impossible to ignore. My breath caught. Was someone watching from outside? Another neighbor? Or someone who had discovered my secret online? The unknown threat sent adrenaline surging, making every sound, every flicker of light, every reflection in the mirror feel magnified and alive. I stepped back slightly, heels clicking against the floor, heart racing. The dress swayed with emotion, soft fabric brushing against my legs, reminding me of the transformation I had embraced. My reflection mirrored every tremor, every heartbeat, every shiver. I was Alex, but more than Alex, bold, exposed, alive. Vulnerable, yet defiant. Isabella's hand tightened around mine, grounding me. "Whatever comes next, we face it together," she said softly. The words comforted me, yet the unknown lurking beyond the apartment kept tension coiled in my chest. The second figure, James, remained silent, his eyes dark with curiosity and unspoken thoughts. Every second stretched, every heartbeat resonated, every shadow seemed alive. Then, a faint, almost whispering voice came from the darkness outside. "I've been watching, and now so has everyone else." My blood ran cold. The words sent shivers down my spine, amplified by the pill's lingering effects. My reflection trembled, as if warning me that the night's suspense was far from over. I realized then that exposure was inevitable, that secrets had a way of slipping into the light, and that my life, forever transformed by one pill and one night, was about to face consequences I couldn't yet imagine. I sank slightly to the couch, clutching the edge, trying to steady my racing heartbeat. The heels, the dress, the wig, they were no longer costumes but armor, identity, and revelation. I had embraced the transformation fully, claimed it, and now the world, or at least those in the shadows, would respond. Isabella knelt beside me, her eyes searching mine. "Alex, are you ready?" she asked, voice steady but intense. I nodded slowly, my pulse still hammering. I think I am," I whispered. The words carried weight, amplified by fear, exhilaration, and the pill's lingering effect. My reflection in the mirror seemed almost to nod back, a silent affirmation of courage and defiance. The room held its breath. The shadows, the reflections, the silence, they all seemed to stretch into eternity. Outside, faint noises hinted that someone or something was watching. The night had transformed me, exposed me, challenged me, and now it was ready to escalate further. One pill, one night, one transformation, and everything had changed. And then, just as the tension reached a breaking point, the lights flickered violently. A shadow passed across the wall behind Isabella and James, moving too fast to be identified. My heels clicked sharply as I instinctively stepped back, dress swaying with emotion. The mirror reflected the fleeting image, a warning, a threat, a glimpse of the unknown. My pulse surged. The room was alive with suspense, danger, and exhilaration, each second stretching into an eternity. I looked at Isabella, then at James, then at my own reflection. Everything had changed. Nothing would ever be the same. The pill, the night, the transformation, it had pushed me beyond fear, beyond hesitation, beyond secrecy. I was exposed, alive, and on the edge of something monumental. And then, the whisper came again, soft yet unmistakable. "You can't hide anymore. The world is watching." My reflection shivered. My breath caught. The apartment, the shadows, the heels, the dress, they all seemed suspended in a moment of suspense, a moment of revelation, a moment that would decide everything. One pill, one night, one transformation, and my life, my identity, and my secret were now on the brink of irreversible change. The cliffhanger hung heavy in the air, unresolved, electrifying, and impossible to ignore.